welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom, and we are going to be talking Jupiter's Legacy, which is a superhero series on Netflix. This is based on a comic created by Mark Millar, who of course was behind the Kick-Ass movies, among others. I did actually read the first issue of Jupiter's Legacy when it actually came out in comic book form, but it never really grabbed me, so I only ever read the first issue. But here we have a series, or at least the first season of a series of another kind of adult superhero TV show. The space is getting somewhat overpopulated, some might argue, but nonetheless I think this is an interesting show, and it focuses on a kind of essentially a world where superheroes have been around for 100 or so years, and they primarily stem from this group of 6 heroes called the Union. And we kind of the series takes place in modern day, and then in flashback starting from 1929 when we kind of see the origin, and it's comprised of, you know, a few different members, including 2 brothers, one of the brothers' friends, kind of a few other kind of people along the way as well. So we get 2 concurrent stories, the kind of the flashbacks and the kind of the modern story. And I'm not going to go into the plot-wise, but let's just talk about what I liked. This is an entertaining show. I don't think it is as strong as some of the other kind of superhero series that we've seen. Things like The Boys, even The Umbrella Academy. I think this is good, but not maybe as strong narratively. Mark Millar has been pretty good, I think, in his kind of comics. I've enjoyed most of them, but sometimes they are a little bit kind of hit and miss, I would say. And like I've said, I never was a big fan of the original story, but this does have a lot of money on display. You know, in the first episode, we probably get the most amount of VFX in the first episode, to be fair, and it ends with this kind of like this big kind of battle with this kind of Thanos kind of looking bad guy, and it's pretty impressive stuff. We do get a few other kind of action sequences along the way as well, and I've got to say the origin story is pretty intriguing, and there's kind of like almost like a quest when we kind of see the flashback sequences that kind of leads on quite an intriguing quest. Takes a little bit of time to get going, I will say, but nonetheless, the quest is pretty exciting, and the mystery is rather intriguing. And I kind of like the way ultimately it kind of gives you the answers of their origin in this kind of series without kind of making you having to wait for kind of season 2 and stuff like that. The action sequences that we do get are very well shot with a variety of different powers on display, and I think they use the powers here pretty well. There's some quite neat effects, but my favourite actually was this guy who has like a teleporting device rather than a kind of an actual superpower, and it's used in quite a kind of a unique way and kind of a fun way as well. But there is a good few kind of superheroes, and in our modern times we now have generations of newer superpowered heroes and kind of villains, so it's all kind of very Marvel and DC at kind of that point. I think the acting is very good. I really kind of got quite engaged with some of the characters. The Utopian, who is probably the central character here, played by Duhamel, I felt is kind of has the same thing, I think, problem that Superman has. Really, he can be a little bit kind of bland and kind of one note in regards to his altruism and things like that. But he still did a good job, I think, kind of with the acting here. I thought the more intriguing characters were his brother Walt and his friend George, who have kind of like an antagonistic kind of relationship. But I did enjoy the performances from both the actors there, and their kind of relationship. The 3 of them, the 2 brothers and this friend who is all have an interesting kind of like dialogue kind of between them. So I do think some of the dramatic scenes kind of work pretty well. And the interesting thing here with this kind of series, I felt that the first half, the kind of the modern day stuff was more interesting, and then the second kind of half of the season, I actually thought the flashback stuff was more interesting. I'm never a big fan of flashbacks, normally speaking, and to be honest with you, the initial bits were kind of a little dull, but they actually got quite intriguing as we kind of get into the kind of like the latter half of the season in regards to the kind of the flashbacks. What didn't I like about the movie, or the series, sorry, like I said, I do think it kind of feels like it's being stretched out a little bit. The flashbacks in the first half of the season seem unnecessarily drawn out to me, just to kind of like stretch that kind of that story. Yeah, so it kind of gets a little dull, I gotta be honest with you, the flashbacks in the first half of the series. And the second half, I gotta be honest, the other thing I found is the kind of second generation superheroes, the kids ultimately. I didn't really feel they had a hell of a lot to do, and I didn't think they had much impact on the actual story. We have the daughter, who's like this wayward daughter called Chloe, barely has an impact on the story, but we spend quite a lot of screen time with her. And there's a few other kind of second generation kind of superheroes that they have minor parts and you know, influence the story in very minor ways, but they feel very, very second fiddle to the kind of the older heroes. And I gotta be honest with you, the story in the kind of the modern times, as I said, it feels a little bit pedestrian and a little bit obvious. There's a kind of a twist in the last episode, and it seems fairly obvious. You know, you can kind of see the writing on the wall with that one. To be honest with you, I think the twist there was, again, you know, everyone could probably guess what was going to happen there, and. This may well happen in later seasons, but there's a hell of a lot of superpowered people in this world, and considering only 6 people got superpowers in the flashback sequences that were like 90 years ago, I don't quite know how many people have got superpowers in the world. It seems, including lots of bad guys. It doesn't ever really tell you that. We can assume that other people have got powers somehow, but the series doesn't actually kind of give you that information. It may well do in future seasons, which leads me to my final issue with it. It does seem this series is just a setup for a second season. This feels like a prologue story compared to a real juicy first installment. This feels it's much more setting up future seasons, and I especially Netflix are renowned for cancelling stuff because of their model. It's not about keeping viewers, it's about getting new ones. So they tend to kind of cancel stuff quite a lot, unless you're kind of Stranger Things, really. That's pretty much, or Orange is the New Black. Pretty much every other show ends up kind of getting cancelled. So I wish shows wouldn't kind of rely so heavily on setups for future seasons when a lot of shows end up getting cancelled. But it still is a good show. It is worth watching. I would say it's an above average kind of like action. Certainly better than, for example, like the CW shows like Flash and Legend of Tomorrow and all that kind of stuff, which obviously is a lower budget, but I don't think is as groundbreaking as like The Boys or Invincible, or obviously the kind of the Marvel proper shows. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.